exhibit, did you pull over the content from these iCloud accounts?
I did.
So do some of these contain potential spelling errors, things of that nature?
Yes. Most of what we'll see today are text messages. And so the Cellbrite software arranges them in a reverse chronological order and assigns each text message a line number. Associated with that is a date and a time for the text, and then who it was to or from, and then the actual content of the text. And so I cut and pasted the content of the text exactly as it appears in the iCloud account.
Thank you. And with that, would you go ahead and read these messages into the record?
Yes. This sheet is from the SMS section of Lori for Style at iCloud.com. Line number 2585, January 23rd, 2019, 5:18 p.m. Text from Lori Vallow to Audrey Baratario. Hi, Audrey. This is Lori. I would love to talk to you sometime. Text me or call me. I'm excited to be able to talk to you about what we both know. Line number 2584.
Judge, could we approve?
All right, Ms. Blake, if you'd like to continue with direct, you may.
Thank you, Your Honor. Agent Hart, if you could go ahead and continue reading those into the record.
Yes. Line number 2584, January.
Judge, I'm going to object at this point on the basis that this is cumulative. There's a record that's already been established with the exhibit, and to just require the officer to read the remainder is cumulative in my opinion.
All right, response from the state.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state's position is it is not cumulative. While the state recognizes it is an exhibit, it's also a summary exhibit that we heard testimony from the agent that this would aid in his testimony today, that he believes it would aid the jurors in understanding. While it is what's on the screen, so long as it's read as to what's appearing on the screen, the state's position is in no way is this cumulative evidence. So we would ask that the judge overrule that objection and allow us to move forward with testimony.
And Judge, briefly in response is that the exhibit is what it is, and it's clear for the jury to look at that and read that. It doesn't necessitate the prosecutor to go line by line over a massive exhibit.
I am going to sustain the objection in that I would find it be somewhat, well, it is cumulative to have a written version of all of the messages and then to simply have a witness read through all of the written messages when they're already being published and the jurors are all capable of reading them as well. I'll sustain that in that I just don't want to have the entire thing read into the record. I don't know that that's necessary, but if you want to have any time or assurance to make sure the jurors have read the messages and direct the witness to any of the specific messages that are contained in there, certainly you can go there, Ms. Blake, but just the wholesale reading of all the messages, I do find the objection is.
Agent Hart, when we look at these messages, looking at the first one there, it appears to be a message from Lori sent to Audrey.
That's correct.
Can you tell us who, if you learned through the investigation, who Audrey Baratario is?
Audrey Baratario was a friend and associate of Chad Daybell.
And did you learn through the investigation how she came to be in contact with Lori?
Chad Daybell introduced her to Lori Vallow.
And when we look at that first message, is there something about that that initially caught your attention?
Yes, it's the line where Lori indicates to Audrey that she's excited to be able to talk about what we both know.
And then did you look at that in conjunction with the response from Audrey to Lori?
Yes, Audrey indicates that or states that she guesses Lori has talked to Chad. And so it's clear from this particular text string that there's a reference by Lori Vallow to Audrey Baratario about what Lori, Audrey, and Chad Daybell know.
And Your Honor, may I ask that the witness be handled a laser pointer if we have one available?
Yes, I do think we have one.
Thank you. And Agent Hart, if at any point that's helpful,
Okay.
that. And then was there some significance to these other messages in relation to those first messages?
Yes, mainly in the fourth line where it says by Lori to Audrey that she thinks it's fun to talk to someone who knows what's really going on. Again, a reference to something between the three of them.
And again, this was in January of 2019.
Correct.
If we move to the next slide, I'm going to pause to give the jurors a chance to look through that.
They do something kind of interesting with exhibits there in Idaho. You know, they have demonstrative exhibits, which I love my demonstrative exhibits. See, here's one. And then you have evidence, you know, and evidence comes into evidence. But Catherine Lizardo, still here also with John Delatorre. Catherine, again, I'm going to ask you to put on your professor hat. Seems to me confusing when you say we're going to admit that as demonstrative evidence, because it really isn't evidence. It's demonstrative. You think the jury is going to say, I'm going to spend a lot of time figuring that out, like that weirdo Bryant. No, they're going to just take it as important evidence. I think that could be a problem. What do you think?
Exactly. Evidence, when it's shown to the jury, they'll assume that's evidence, whatever you label it. And it's not the jury's job to figure out what's admitted evidence and what's an evidence that you're just showing to help that witness's testimony. That in itself is confusing to explain to a jury with everything else that's happening. So this demonstrative evidence is being shown to them so that they can go along as the witness is talking about all of this text messages. And I'm glad that the judge actually ruled that it would be cumulative to read each of those text messages, because that would have made the jury feel very bored when they can actually just read the text message. So the flow of the testimony and questioning was much better at the very end.
And I definitely
context.
Totally agree with that. Cumulative and boring. You know, the objection boring doesn't really work, but cumulative definitely works. Okay, don't go anywhere, folks, because we've got an update on the mom-daughter murder trial coming up out of Tennessee. When we come back, she was convicted of a lesser included, the reckless homicide, 15 to 25 years on the table. What do you think she got? Stay tuned. We'll get into that right after this.